could just do yoga on the beach. I could just, eat a mango or two. We don't really need much in the Dominican Republic. I don't really need to do much. It's going to be an easier way of living. It's going to be an easier life. What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's your girl Jada here, back with another video, and today we are going to be talking about 90 Day Fiance the other way. We're going to be talking about Danielle and Yohan. So this couple has been proving pretty tumultuous from the beginning. I talked about them in the very first video that I did. I believe that was a few weeks ago at this point, but I'll link it in the corner here. But I honestly feel as though they were kind of doomed. If they did stay together, I felt like it wasn't really going to be for much longer. But it did seem like their foundation was pretty shaky. Danielle had actually met Yohan on a trip to the Dominican Republic. She was staying there for a little while on vacation, and Yohan was working at the resort or hotel that Danielle was staying in. And they kicked it off, and I think shortly after them meeting, they decided to get married. Yohan, I believe, is about 30 something years old, and Danielle, I believe, is in her 40s. There's a little bit of an age gap, and before they actually got married, it did seem as though their relationship, at least over on, I think it was the 90 Day Fiance franchise, not the spin-off of The Other Way, but I believe they were engaged at the time, and Danielle was still making noise about how much Yohan was spending, and I think at one point he spent like $100 or $200 on peanuts or something like that. And I'm like, how the heck do you spend that much on some nuts? If what she said was true. From then on, people were already thinking that Yohan was just using Danielle for money and that Danielle was just his sugar mama. But either way, they still go ahead, get married. She goes back to the US. She still has a job over there at this time, but not for long. Yohan is back in the DR. He's trying to obviously still make money, and I think at one point he does open up a butcher shop, so he's really trying. But back in the States, Danielle, I believe she was a teacher within a public school and also a yoga teacher in her spare time. So what we find out though about Danielle shortly after she decides to leave her jobs, okay, basically pack up her entire life and go and live with Yohan in the DR, she has this conversation with her friends, and they're really asking her serious questions, very important ones. They're like, what are you going to do for money? How are you going to live? How are you going to survive? And Danielle basically says, not verbatim now, but she basically says, in a nutshell, I could just do yoga on the beach. I could just, eat a mango or two. We don't really need much in the Dominican Republic. I don't really need to do much, basically. Like, it's going to be an easier way of living. It's going to be an easier life. Her friends are just looking at her like, this woman is absolutely delusional. How are we friends? That's not what they said, but honestly, in my mind, I would think that. I'm like, girl, how are we even connected at this point? Either way, she decides to go to the Dominican Republic, leaves everything behind. However, when she gets to the DR, we find out some things about when she left in the US, and also some promises that she had made to Yohan but decided to break. So Danielle comes over to the DR. She's telling Yohan like, oh, we're gonna stay here for a little while. I just want to leave all my stress behind because everything's so stressful and expensive in the US. I just want to stay here in the DR with you and just chill for a little while. That's basically what she said. But we find out that she actually promised Yohan that she was going to go back to the States and bring him over there to live with her in the US, in New York. And I'm like, Danielle, you basically go back on your promise. You never even tried to get his documents straightened out. You never tried to get a visa for him to come and live in the US. You never did any of that. But however, you were telling him lies, saying that you were about to do it. You were gonna do it. Okay, so with all that said, we find out that she also has thousands upon thousands of dollars of debt that she's trying to leave behind and escape by coming to the DR. So what gets me is how she complains about everything being expensive. However, you live in New York. And not just any part of New York. You live in New York City. Probably one of the most expensive cities in the US. But you're complaining about things being expensive when there's a bunch of other cities that you could move to. It doesn't really make sense to me. You know what I mean? It really doesn't. But hey, I guess if you're used to something, you're just gonna stick it out. Maybe she was just used to living there and was like, you know what? It's, you know, what I call home and I don't want to go anywhere else. I don't know. But I just wouldn't complain if that's where I chose to stay. You know what I mean? Like, anyways, moving forward, it just seems like they were already starting things off on a lie. She's saying, I just want to leave things behind because it's more stress-free here and all that. But it was really and truly because she's trying to escape debt. And on top of that, you didn't even file this man's visa. Anyways, so moving forward, they're already having issues with the fact that, you know, obviously Yohan, he doesn't really have that well-paying of a job. Also, Danielle is trying to find a place to stay because at this moment or at this point in time, Yohan is still living with his family, okay? He has a pretty big family. They seem to like Danielle. However, Danielle does seem really high maintenance. So where Yohan and his family were living and also the quality, you know, of the space, Danielle wasn't feeling that. She was like, yeah, we're gonna need to find an apartment. We're gonna need to find a place to stay, just the two of us. While they're trying to find an apartment, they're staying in a hotel. She's racking up bills. Obviously, the money, I'm trying to figure out where the money's come from because she's still in debt, okay, by thousands of dollars. She's still in debt in the US. And on top of that, she hasn't really established anything with regards to her yoga and teaching. I think she was saying something about doing it online. However, I still hadn't really seen anything being done in the show. So I don't know. But regardless of all of that, they eventually find an apartment that Danielle likes because what Yohan likes, it doesn't even matter, okay? What Yohan wants in life, it doesn't seem to matter to Danielle, okay, overall. They find an apartment and Danielle's already having a conversation with him about him doing his part and him giving something towards the rent and the bills. And it was like, first of all, again, it seems like none of what Yohan has to say matters. His input doesn't matter, but yet you want his money to pay and fund for your lifestyle, okay, so you could be comfortable. But what gets me is that she is asking him what he can give, but you know good and well that he doesn't make that much because, again, he lives in the Dominican Republic. The pay is already pretty low in comparison to the US. It's just kind of unfair to me that you're expecting this man to pay rent and a substantial amount of it for a luxury apartment when you know good and well from the beginning that he wanted to come to the US to basically make more money. So it was just really kind of stupid to me. So their arguments kind of started from there, if I'm going to be honest. And everything just continued to go downhill the entire season. Danielle is basically saying to Yohan that he's going to have to do this, this, and that around the house because she is the breadwinner. She's the one that's going to have to pay all the bills and pay the rent. She basically kind of emasculates him in that moment. And that's kind of the start, I think, of their problems, is that she is very domineering. It just seems like none of what Yohan is doing is impressing her. What gets me also is that scene or episode when Yohan takes Danielle to go see his butcher shop and she is just completely grossed out and treating him like a child and like he's stupid. She's just saying things like, you know, why do you not have the meat in a refrigerator? That's nasty. You got flies around. And why don't you have a computer? You need a computer to do this, this, and that. And it was like, Danielle, be proud of this man for actually trying. Like, he could have just been a bum, like a lot of these other people I see on this 90 Day Fiance franchise, okay? It's just that he was actually trying and it didn't seem like she was in any shape or form impressed or happy for him or proud of him. It just seemed more of like a, you should be doing better. And what is so funny to me is at the end of it, before she kind of walks off, she's just like, the butcher shop, it's not really making money. You're not really making money, right? And I'm like, in the beginning, you're not going to make money because you're still trying to recoup on what you even spent. So no, you're just going to be breaking even in the beginning. That's how all businesses start. You're going to break even, and then eventually you're going to move into profit. Hopefully, you know, that's how things are supposed to go, right? But with Danielle, I find it so interesting that she has a business. She has a yoga thing that she does, and she didn't see that. I don't understand how she didn't understand the math of that and how that works, considering she owns her own business. So that was weird. In that moment, again, I just really felt bad for Yohan because you could see he was like proud of himself for doing something on his own and really trying to branch out. I feel like she really just kind of was demeaning in that moment. Like she was just trying her hardest to make him feel bad about himself. So I didn't like that. I really didn't like that. But we end up, obviously, after that, having more issues here and there. They have a difference of religious beliefs. So Danielle, I think she practices some type of spirituality or some type of religion that is more focused on spirituality, and I think it's based in some African traditions. I don't know which country it stems from exactly, and I don't remember the name that she said in the show, but she is into very different practices than what Yohan is used to. Yohan seems to come from a Christian, somewhat also Catholic type of relationship when it comes to his religious beliefs and faith. So it seems as though it's clashing a lot with Danielle. And Yohan, you know, keeps making fun of some of the things that Danielle is doing. And there was one point, it was kind of funny actually. It was an episode where Yohan came to talk with, I don't know what the name of the leader is or person, but it was someone that Danielle speaks to, I think like a spiritual advisor or something like that. So the advisor was speaking in some type of like African language, it sounds like, and then there was a translator who would translate what he said into Spanish for Yohan. So I have to say one thing in terms of Danielle. I am proud of her for actually trying to learn Spanish and speak it with him, with Yohan I mean, because there's a lot of individuals that come on this show and they try to force their partners to just learn English, right? But it's just like, okay, in the process of them learning English, how are they supposed to communicate with you? You're still gonna have to try and also learn their language. So yeah, I am happy that Danielle tried her best to speak Spanish. Every now and again, there'd be some words that she didn't really know, but for the most part, she really tried her best to communicate with him in his own language. I give her that. But in this particular situation, I found it kind of funny that the advisor kind of told Yohan that he has to be careful of small bones. It was really bizarre. He was like, yeah, be careful of eating small bones from animals because you got to be careful of your throat or something like that. And it was like, okay, you started off great by calling him a king, that he came into the world with a crown on his head, and he was happy about that, but then it got weird with the bones, and it was like, okay, obviously, you know what I mean? Yeah, I'm not gonna eat like some fish and just like eat it whole so that the bones get stuck in my throat, you know? But it was kind of strange. It was just so funny that Danielle was like so into what the guy was saying, and Yohan's just sitting there like, what is this? This is a joke. And if I'm going to be honest, it was kind of funny. It was kind of like, okay, yeah, that's obvious, you know? So shortly after this, one of Danielle's friends, she comes down and she meets up with Yohan and Danielle. That's when Danielle finds out that Yohan had actually gotten a girl pregnant in the past, but she didn't know that the girl had actually gotten rid of the child. And it was such a weird thing to get mad about, but Danielle got mad about that. And she was like, you're hiding things from me and I feel like I can't trust you. But at the same time, like I said from the beginning, this woman was lying to Yohan. Number one, about the visa and bringing him back to the US, and number two, about the debt that she was in. But yet you're coming after him about not saying all of this information. Like, what do you want him to say? Oh, my past girlfriend or someone I slept with that got pregnant, she terminated the pregnancy. Like, what When would that come up in a regular conversation, Danielle? After all of this goes down is when Danielle also tells Yohan that her friends, or to be more specific, one of her ex-boyfriends was coming to the DR to visit her and she wanted to go meet up with him. And again, it's so disrespectful to me. It's one thing when it's just a guy friend. That could also be kind of touchy in itself. But I think in that case, it would be a little more acceptable than you meeting up with your ex-boyfriend. Someone that you had a sexual relationship with. And even Yohan said this. He was just like, you had a sexual relationship with this person. It's not just a friend. This is a boyfriend, a partner of yours. So it just, yeah, it really rubbed me the wrong way. And I was like, Yohan being petty in this moment, I could kind of accept it because it's like, Danielle, it's disrespectful. It really is disrespectful. But she's trying her hardest to get him on board with meeting this ex-boyfriend after she had already met up with him. Regardless of what Yohan had to say, again, it was just kind of like an emasculation. Like nothing that Yohan said or felt a ways about mattered to Danielle. And I think that is just so wrong. It just makes me kind of angry that it's like he couldn't be heard. None of what he said mattered to her. Anyways, moving forward, she eventually gets Yohan to come out and meet this ex-boyfriend of hers, and they're kind of having a good conversation. The guy doesn't really know how to speak Spanish, so every now and again Danielle would have to translate what Yohan says. And at one point he does make an inappropriate joke. He's just like, what size are your feet? Because you know Danielle likes men with big you-know-whats. And it was just like, what is happening? And Danielle did let out like a nervous laugh. Then I think at some point the conversation went south because Yohan was basically talking about how with Danielle, she doesn't really respect him. And I'm trying to place this in terms of the birthday party that Danielle tried to throw for Yohan, because I think this was after she went out with this ex-boyfriend. She came home, Yohan, you know, he was upset, but however, it was his birthday, I think like the next day or something. It was kind of coming across as though, oh, you would rather be with your ex-boyfriend than be with me on my dang birthday, like really? So yeah, it just came across as really insensitive. So when he started acting up at the birthday dinner that Danielle tried to throw for him with all his family, he didn't really say thank you to her. And she was sitting right there, and I think one of Yohan's family members, he basically shouted at Yohan. He was like, oh, don't forget to thank your beautiful wife. And I can't remember exactly what Yohan said, but it was something kind of petty. Either he said, I already thanked her, or I don't have to thank her, or something like that. It's really awkward. And then Danielle, she kind of ran off, getting all emotional. And they have this heated conversation, and she's just like, I'm ready to go home. And she just leaves Yohan there at the party. But shortly after that is when I think she convinced Yohan to go and meet up with the ex-boyfriend and have a chat. But Yohan, he tries to clear the air by asking, you know, what the boyfriend's intentions are and stuff like that. But Yohan basically said that he didn't really trust Danielle like that. And that's when I think Danielle started to tear up a little bit. And after this meeting was when Yohan decided to meet up with the ex-boyfriend by himself. And that's when the ex decides to tell Yohan, like, you know, Danielle is the type of person that is not gonna really put up with someone trying to control her. She's always gonna do what she wants, and you're just gonna have to be okay with that because she's always gonna do whatever she feels like doing. And I think that is when Yohan in his mind was like, this is not gonna work. However, he still continued to be in a relationship with her. Until the tell-all, which, oh god, it is interesting. But that's pretty much kind of the ending of that. But I don't want to share what ended up happening in the tell-all. I'll probably talk about that in the tell-all itself. It was kind of a hot mess, if I'm going to be honest. It just felt like with Danielle from the beginning, she just wasn't the relationship type, or actually to be more specific, the marriage type, because they were married. It seemed as though she didn't have any respect for this man, and it was just more so along the lines of, I do what I want, you're gonna have to be okay with it because this is gonna be my way or the highway. the entire season. So I just knew it wasn't going to work. Don't get me wrong, I do feel like here and there Yohan is a little immature in some ways. However, for the most part, I do think that Danielle still played a heavy role in disrespecting him and making him kind of do things that's very petty and lash out and make it seem like he's more immature than he actually really is. But it was really just because he felt a ways about what Danielle was doing in their relationship. Y'all could, of course, let me know your thoughts on this couple down below, but overall, that's kind of what my assessment was about their interactions with each other on the show. But you're welcome to disagree with me, of course, if you saw something different. Honestly, within the past couple of weeks that I've been doing these 90 Day Fiancé videos, I've been getting quite a lot of comments and also DMs over on my social media accounts of people being a little irate with me and my takes on these couples. But that's just what I think. I'm just telling you what I think based on what I see, and I'm going to share my opinion, you know? The comment section is there for you to share yours, okay? But yeah, it's just so interesting how angry people get, and it's just like, first of all, these people don't even know we exist. So it's just kind of like, why are you so passionate about it? It's just a show. It's a TV show, right? But y'all let me know your thoughts down below. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.